He told my family I was lazy, that I was spoiled, that I did nothing. I proved him wrong by walking out. Before I tell you my story, the whole story, I want you to picture something. Picture a man, my husband, his hands frantically shuffling through a pile of unopened mail on a cluttered kitchen counter, his face a mask of rising panic. Picture a sink overflowing with dirty dishes, a crusty pan cemented to the stove, and hear the sound of two young children crying, pulling at their father's legs. Now, picture a woman, me, calm and resolute, walking out the front door with a small suitcase, not looking back as the door clicks shut behind her. What would happen if you stopped doing everything for just 1 week? The cooking, the cleaning, the planning, the worrying, all of it. What would happen if the person who takes it all for granted was suddenly forced to see it? Let's find out. My name is Sarah, and for 8 years, my world has revolved around a carefully constructed ecosystem of schedules, lists, and quiet, relentless effort. I'm 32, mother to 6-year-old Maya and 4-year-old Leo, and the architect of our family's life. My official job title is Remote Project Manager for a software company, a role I perform in the stolen moments between school runs, meal prep, and folding laundry. But my real, unpaid, and utterly invisible job is Chief Operating Officer of the Peterson household. My husband, Tom, works a demanding 9-to-5 job in finance. He leaves the house at 7:30 each morning, dressed in a crisp shirt I ironed the night before, and returns around 6:30 in the evening to a home that is, for the most part, an oasis of calm. He sees the end result, a clean kitchen, happy children, a hot meal on the table, and assumes it all happens by magic, by some passive process of domestic osmosis. He doesn't see me checking the school's parent portal for updates while simultaneously mediating a fight over a Lego tower. He doesn't see me scheduling Leo's dentist appointment during my lunch break, or using my 15 minutes of quiet after the kids are in bed to map out our weekly budget and pay the bills. This work is the dark matter of our family universe. It's everywhere, holding everything together but completely unseen. To Tom, my contributions were not just invisible, they were non-existent. Must be nice to work from home in your pajamas all day, he'd say, a casual jab that felt like a tiny paper cut. Over time, those cuts accumulated, leaving a network of fine, stinging scars. He'd walk in, drop his briefcase, and survey a room I'd just spent an hour tidying. "Tough day?" he'd ask, his eyes scanning for any sign of imperfection. A stray toy, a crumb on the floor. "Looks like you had a relaxing one." The breaking point didn't come from one of his casual dismissals. It arrived on a sunny Sunday afternoon, disguised as a family visit. My parents, who lived 2 hours away, had come for lunch. I spent the morning preparing a meal I knew they'd love: roast chicken, rosemary potatoes, my mother's favorite asparagus dish. The house was spotless. The kids were miraculously well-behaved, playing quietly in the living room. I felt a rare sense of pride, a quiet satisfaction in the seamless operation I was conducting. We were all sitting at the dining table, the scent of roast chicken filling the air. My father was telling a story about his golf game, and Tom was laughing along, playing the part of the dutiful son-in-law. "Sarah, this is just wonderful," my mother said, smiling at me. "I don't know how you do it all. Working, the kids, a house this beautiful." Before I could even respond, Tom let out a short, dismissive laugh. "Oh, she's got it pretty easy, don't you worry." He took a large bite of chicken, chewing thoughtfully before continuing. "I'm the one out there battling in the trenches every day. Sarah gets to hang out at home. She's spoiled, really." The words hung in the air, thick and suffocating. I looked at him, then at my parents. My father's smile had vanished, replaced with a look of confusion. My mother's face was a mask of careful neutrality, but I saw the flicker of hurt in her eyes, hurt for me. The clinking of cutlery on plates was the only sound. I felt a hot flush creep up my neck, my face burning with a shame so intense it was almost physical. In front of my own parents, the two people who had raised me to believe in the dignity of all work, He had reduced my entire existence to a single insulting word: spoiled. He hadn't just belittled me, he had erased me. He had taken the immense, exhausting, invisible effort I poured into our life and called it nothing. "Tom," my father started, his voice low and firm, "I don't think that's fair." "Oh, come on, David," Tom said, waving his fork dismissively. "I'm just kidding around. Sarah knows I appreciate her." He winked at me, a grotesque parody of affection that made my stomach churn. But I didn't know. In that moment, 8 years of unspoken resentment, of feeling taken for granted, of swallowing my pride, crystallized into a single, sharp point of clarity. I saw our marriage not as a partnership, but as a company, where he was the CEO and I was the unpaid, unacknowledged intern. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I didn't make a scene that he could later use as evidence of my emotional nature. I simply picked up my napkin, dabbed my lips, and gave a tight, brittle smile. "Who wants dessert?" I asked, my voice sounding strangely distant to my own ears. The rest of the lunch passed in a blur of forced politeness. My parents left shortly after, their hugs feeling a little tighter than usual, their eyes full of a concern they didn't voice. Tom, oblivious, went to the living room to watch a football game, leaving me with the mountain of dishes. As I stood at the sink, hot water running over my hands, I didn't feel anger anymore. The humiliation had burned away, leaving behind something cold and hard and clear. A decision. He thought I did nothing? Fine. I would do nothing. I would remove myself from the equation entirely and let him see what the math looked like without me. Have you ever felt that way? Like your contributions are completely invisible to the person who should see them most clearly? Let me know in the comments. I have a feeling I'm not alone. That night, as Tom snored softly beside me, I slipped out of bed. I didn't go to the kitchen to pack lunches for the next day. I didn't go to the laundry room to switch the load of clothes. I went to the closet in the spare room. Quietly, methodically, I pulled out a small carry-on suitcase. I packed a few changes of clothes, a toothbrush, my laptop, and its charger. I didn't pack photos. I didn't pack anything sentimental. I was packing for a business trip, not an escape. The business of teaching my husband a lesson he would never forget. The sound of the zipper closing felt deafening in the silent house, a final, decisive act before the storm. The next morning, the house hummed with its usual pre-work chaos. Leo couldn't find his favorite dinosaur socks, Maya was complaining that her toast was too pointy, and Tom was frantically searching for his lucky tie. I moved through it all like a ghost, an observer in my own life. I found the socks, cut the crusts off the toast, and pointed to the tie hanging on the back of the bedroom door, all on autopilot. My small suitcase was hidden in the trunk of my car, a secret bomb waiting to detonate our carefully managed lives. As Tom gathered his things, ready to leave, I took a deep breath. "I'm going to go visit my friend Chloe for a few days," I said, my voice deliberately casual. Chloe was my college roommate who lived a state over. It was a plausible, unremarkable reason to be gone. He barely looked up from his phone, scrolling through emails. "Oh yeah? Fun. When are you leaving?" "This morning, after I dropped the kids at school and daycare." "Okay," he said, finally looking at me. There was no concern in his eyes, no question about why I was suddenly leaving, just a flicker of mild inconvenience. "So you won't be here for dinner? I'll have to figure something out with the kids?" "You'll have to figure everything out," I said, my voice still heaving. "I'll be gone for the week." He shrugged, a gesture of supreme confidence. "A week? Okay, we'll be fine. A little boys' week, right, kids?" He ruffled Leo's hair, who was still half asleep. "We can handle it. Have fun." He kissed me on the cheek, a quick, dismissive peck, and walked out the door. He didn't ask if I needed anything. He didn't ask if everything was okay. He simply assumed that the household machine I had built would continue to run itself in my absence. I watched his car pull out of the driveway, a strange calm settling over me. I got the kids ready, my movements efficient and practiced. I packed Maya's lunch, remembering to include the note she loved finding. I made sure Leo had his show and tell item for daycare. At the school gate, I hugged Maya a little tighter than usual. "Be good for Daddy, sweetie. I'll see you soon." "Okay, Mommy, I love you," she said, already turning to run toward her friends. After dropping Leo at daycare, I didn't drive home. I drove to the highway. With each mile that passed, the crushing weight of the mental load I carried every single day began to lift. I wasn't thinking about what to make for dinner. I wasn't mentally cataloging the contents of our refrigerator. I wasn't worrying about whether Maya had her library book for school on Wednesday. I turned up the radio, rolled down the window, and for the first time in years, I thought only about myself. The first call came at 5:45 p.m. I was checked into a small, clean hotel about an hour from Chloe's house. I wanted true anonymity, and was lying on the perfectly made bed, reading a novel I'd bought 3 years ago and never opened. "Hey." Tom's voice was tight with irritation. "Where did you put the daycare pickup slip? They won't release Leo without it." "It's in the top left-hand drawer of the kitchen desk, in the folder labeled School and Daycare Forms." "Okay, whatever. I'm already here. I'll have to talk my way through it. You know I have that quarterly report to finish tonight. This is really not helping." He hung up before I could reply. The second call came 2 hours later. "Do the kids not eat pasta anymore?" he asked, his voice laced with frustration. "I made spaghetti and they're just pushing it around the plate. Leo is crying for dino nuggets." "We're out of dino nuggets," I said. "I was going to do a grocery run tomorrow. They're on the list." "What list?" "The magnetic one on the side of the fridge." There was a pause, and I could hear him walking, the sound of the refrigerator door opening. "This thing? This has like 50 items on it. When were you planning on telling me we were out of milk and bread and everything else?" "I wasn't planning on telling you," I said softly. "I was planning on buying it." He let out an exasperated sigh. "Fine, I'll order a pizza. This is ridiculous." By day 2, the cracks were starting to show. A frantic text at 8:15 a.m. "Maya missed the bus. I have a 9 a.m. meeting I can't miss. What do I do?" I didn't reply immediately. I let him sit with the problem, a problem I solved at least twice a month. 20 minutes later, another text. "Never mind, I'm driving her. My boss is gonna kill me." That afternoon, he called again. His tone had shifted from irritation to outright panic. "Sarah, I got a letter in the mail today from the electric company. It's bright red." I knew exactly what it was. I had a reminder in my calendar to pay it by the end of the week. I handled all the finances, a complex dance of transferring money between accounts to cover bills that came at different times of the month. Tom just saw the healthy balance in our main checking account and assumed all was well. He had no idea about the separate account where I staged money for utilities, the mortgage, the car payment. "It says it's a final notice," he said, his voice a little shaky. "It says they're going to shut off the power on Friday if it's not paid. Is this real? Did you forget to pay the electric bill?" The accusation, the immediate assumption that I had failed, sent a familiar sting through me, but this time it was followed by a cold wave of vindication. "No, Tom, I didn't forget," I said, my voice dangerously quiet. "I was just not done it yet. It was on my to-do list for this week." Let me ask you something. If you left your partner alone for a week, what do you think would collapse first? The laundry? The meal plan? The budget? I'm genuinely curious. Tell me in the comments below. Tom was silent for a long moment. I could almost hear the gears turning in his head, the dawning realization that the lights in our home stayed on because of a system he didn't even know existed. A system run by the woman he thought did nothing. How do I pay it?" he asked, his voice a little small. "The account information is on the bill. You can pay it online." "With what money? I just looked at the checking account. There isn't enough to cover this and the mortgage payment that's due tomorrow." "You'll have to transfer the money from the savings account," I explained, as one might to a child. "The one labeled Bill Pay Staging." Another long silence. "There are 3 savings accounts," he said, his voice filled with a new kind of bewilderment. "I have to go, Tom. I'm about to have dinner with Chloe." I wasn't. I was about to order room service and watch a movie that wasn't animated. But he didn't need to know that. He needed to be alone with the consequences of his own ignorance. As I hung up the phone, I looked around my quiet, orderly hotel room. There was no laundry to fold, no dinner to cook, no bills demanding my attention. There was only silence. A beautiful, profound, and deeply unfamiliar silence. And in that silence, I felt the first true stirring of freedom. The strike was working. But I had a feeling the worst was yet to come. Day 3 began with a barrage of missed calls. I woke up at 8 a.m., not to a child's hand patting my face, but to the gentle sunlight filtering through the hotel curtains. It was a luxury so profound it felt illicit. I turned on my phone and it immediately buzzed into a frenzy. 6 missed calls from Tom, all between 6:30 and 7:45 a.m. A string of increasingly desperate text messages followed. "Call me. Seriously, Sarah, I need to talk to you. Maya says she has crazy hair day at school today. What the hell is crazy hair day? The dishwasher is making a weird noise and there's water on the floor. Just pick up the phone. This isn't funny anymore." I read the messages, took a slow sip of my coffee, and put the phone back down. This wasn't about being cruel. It was about enforcing a boundary. For years, I had been his 24/7 technical support for life. He needed to learn to read the manual. His next move was predictable. Defeated, he called for reinforcements. My phone rang again, but this time the caller ID showed Mom. I answered immediately. "Hi, sweetie," she said, her voice warm but with an undercurrent of concern. "Everything okay?" "I'm fine, Mom. Just taking a little break." "I know," she said. "Tom just called me. He sounded frantic." I waited. He said he's completely overwhelmed. He asked if I could come over for a day or two to help him with the kids in the house. My heart seized for a moment. My mother is a helper, a fixer. It's in her nature to swoop in and rescue. If she went over there, the entire experiment would be for nothing. Tom would learn that if he complains loudly enough, another woman will simply step in to do the work. "What did you say?" I asked, my voice tight. There was a pause on the line, and then my mother said the most powerful words I had ever heard her speak. I told him no. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. I told him, she continued, her voice firm and clear, that for 8 years I've watched my brilliant daughter manage a household, raise 2 beautiful children, and hold down a demanding job. And for 8 years, I've listened to her husband make jokes about how easy she has it. I told him the person he needs help from is Sarah, and since she's not there, he's going to have to learn to do her job himself. I believe my exact words were, "You're a grown man, Tom. Figure it out." Tears pricked my eyes. It was a validation so fierce and unexpected it felt like a shield. "Thank you, Mom," I whispered. Armed with my mother's solidarity, I felt a new surge of resolve. The house of cards Tom believed was built on nothing was collapsing, and he was right in the middle of it. The chaos peaked that afternoon. He called me, and this time I answered. The sound that greeted me was pure pandemonium. Leo was screaming in the background, a high-pitched, inconsolable wail. Maya was shouting, "I'm telling Mom," over and over again, and Tom's voice was a ragged, desperate whisper. "My boss just called me. I had to leave work early again because the daycare called. Leo has a fever. I've missed 2 deadlines, and he's talking about putting me on formal review." "You need to come home, Sarah. I can't do this. I can't." "What can't you do, Tom?" I asked, my voice devoid of sympathy. "Can't you take care of your own children? Can't you manage your own home? Can't you do the job that you told my parents was so easy?" "That's not fair," he shot back. I didn't know about the appointments and the bills and the crazy hair day." "Exactly. You didn't know, and you never bothered to ask. You just assumed it all happened." "I was trying to pay the electric bill online, like you said," he said, his voice cracking. "I transferred the money, but I must have messed it up. I just got an alert from the bank. The account is overdrawn. I paid the bill from the wrong account, and now the mortgage payment is going to bounce. They're going to charge us hundreds of dollars in fees." That was it. The ultimate tangible failure. The one thing he was supposed to be the master of, the finances. had crumbled under his management in less than 72 hours. He had always prided himself on his financial acumen, while I was just supposed to handle the soft side of life. But I was the one who had built the system that actually worked, the careful, meticulous budget that kept our family financially stable. And he had broken it in 3 days. The screaming in the background intensified. "I have to go," he choked out. "Leo's getting sick." He hung up. I sat on the edge of my hotel bed, the phone heavy in my hand. A part of me, the maternal, caregiving part, felt a pang of guilt. My son was sick. My family was in chaos. But a stronger, clearer voice reminded me why I was doing this. This was not just about teaching Tom a lesson. It was about saving myself. It was about refusing to spend another decade of my life being systematically erased. This is the part of the story that gets complicated. Do you think I should have warned him, given him a manual, a set of instructions? Or was this shock to the system the only way he would ever truly understand? Let me know your thoughts on this because I've gone over it in my own mind 1,000 times. Later that evening, another call came, this time from Tom's boss, a man named Mr. Henderson. Tom must have given me his number in a moment of sheer desperation. "Sarah, it's Mark Henderson," he said, his voice polite but strained. "Listen, I don't mean to overstep, but Tom has had to leave the office early 3 days in a row. He seems incredibly distressed. He mentioned a family emergency. Is everything all right?" I made a split-second decision. I could cover for him, or I could tell the simple, unvarnished truth. "Hello, Mr. Henderson," I said, my voice calm and professional. "There is no family emergency. I am a project manager, and I am currently away on a pre-planned trip. My husband, who is also a parent, is at home managing our household and our 2 children, one of whom has a fever today. It seems he's finding their responsibilities more demanding than he anticipated." There was a stunned silence on the other end of the line. I had a feeling Mr. Henderson had only ever heard one side of the story of Tom, the dedicated employee, occasionally hampered by domestic issues. I see," he said finally. "Well, thank you for the clarification. I hope your son feels better soon." As I hung up, I knew I had crossed a line. I had not only let Tom fail, I had allowed his failure to become visible to the one person whose opinion he valued above all others, his boss. The final call of the day came late that night. It wasn't a call, but a voicemail. Tom's voice was unrecognizable. It was stripped of all its arrogance, all its irritation. It was just the sound of a man who was completely and utterly broken. I remember sitting in the dim light of the hotel room, the phone cool against my ear as I pressed play. His voice filled the silence, a ragged recording of a man unraveling. "Sarah, it's me. The kids are finally asleep. Leo's fever broke, I think. I gave him the medicine from the pink bottle. I hope that was the right one. God, I hope that was the right one." He took a shaky breath, a sound that seemed to carry the weight of the entire week. "I don't even know where to start. The house it's a disaster. It's not just messy, it's defeated. There's pizza crust on the sofa and something sticky on the floor that I'm scared to touch. I burned the toast this morning and the smoke alarm went off and both kids started screaming and I thought I was going to lose my mind." There was a long pause, filled only by his ragged breathing. "But that's not it. It's not just the mess, it's everything. I found your planner. The big one by the computer. I opened it, and I just stared at it. The color coding, the appointments, the reminders, pay car insurance, schedule Maya's parent-teacher conference, buy gift for Aiden's birthday party, follow up on furnace repair. It goes on for pages, Sarah. It's like the operating system for our entire lives, and I never even knew it existed." His voice cracked again. "I called your mom. She told me to figure it out myself. And she was right. Then Mark Henderson called you. I know he did. He spoke to me this afternoon. He didn't yell. It was worse. He just looked at me with this pity. He said, 'Tom, my wife and I have a shared calendar. It helps.' And I wanted the floor to swallow me whole. He let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. what I said on Sunday in front of your parents. Spoiled. God, how could I have said that? It's the ugliest, most ignorant thing I've ever said. I do nothing. I walk in the door and everything is done, and I take the credit. I eat the food you plan and shop for and cook. I wear the clothes you wash and iron. I enjoy the weekends you schedule. I live in the home you manage. You do everything. And I called it nothing. I am so sorry, Sarah. I had no idea. I was blind. And I'm so sorry. Please come home. The voicemail ended, but his words echoed in the quiet room. I didn't call him back. His apology was a start, but a wound that deep doesn't heal with a single voicemail. He needed to sit with that new, raw understanding for a little while longer. My week of vacation was unlike any I'd ever had. There were no tourist attractions, no fancy dinners. There was just space. I went for long walks. I sat in coffee shops for hours, reading. I reconnected with the person I was before I became a wife and a mother, the woman who had opinions about art and politics, who had dreams that didn't involve anyone else. From my hotel room, I occasionally checked the security cameras we had installed, not to spy, but to ensure the kids were fundamentally safe. I saw the chaos. I saw Tom trying to make pancakes and covering the kitchen in a fine layer of flour. I saw him patiently reading a book to Maya, his voice hoarse. I saw him fall asleep on the couch with Leo curled up on his chest. It was a strange, disorienting mix of schadenfreude and a deep, aching love for my children. One afternoon, sitting by the hotel window, my mind drifted back to our wedding day. I remembered the vows we'd written. We promised to be partners, to lift each other up, to face every challenge together, as equals. When had that promise eroded? It wasn't one big event. It was a slow, quiet death by 1,000 paper cuts. It was every time he'd said, "Don't worry your pretty little head about it," when I asked about our investments. It was every time I'd automatically been the one to leave a meeting when daycare called. We hadn't built a partnership. We had defaulted to a set of antiquated roles, and I had been complicit in my own diminishment. On day 5, Tom started cleaning, desperately. I watched on the camera as he scrubbed the kitchen floor on his hands and knees. He even tried to do the laundry, though I saw him holding up a shrunken wool sweater with a look of pure bewilderment. He called a neighbor, a stay-at-home dad named Kevin, and I watched them talking on the front porch. He was finally asking for help, but not from me. He was trying to learn. His apology sounded genuine. He was finally seeing the truth. But after years of being taken for granted, would you forgive him if you were Sarah? Or is a week of struggle not enough to erase years of disrespect? I'd love to know what you think. On the evening of day 6, my phone rang. It was Tom. I stared at the screen for a long moment, my heart pounding. This was it. I took a deep breath and answered. "Hello, Tom," I said, my voice steady. "Sarah," he said. He sounded tired, but not frantic, just weary to his bones. "I know you need your space. I get it now. I really, truly get it. But the kids, they miss you like crazy. And I miss you. Not just the things you do. I miss you. Can you please tell me when you're coming home?" I looked at the window at the darkening sky. The past week had changed everything. It had shattered his reality, and in doing so, it had rebuilt mine. I felt a sense of power I hadn't felt in years. Not the power to control him, but the power to control my own life, to set my own terms. "I'll be home tomorrow," I said, my voice clear and firm. "We need to talk." I pulled into our driveway at noon on Sunday, exactly 1 week after I had left. The first thing I noticed was the lawn. It was mowed. The edges were a little crooked, but it was done. A small, significant sign of effort. I took a deep breath and used my key to open the front door. The house was quiet. It wasn't the pristine, magazine-ready home I usually kept, but it wasn't the disaster zone I had seen on the cameras either. The toys were in their bins, the mail was in a neat pile on the desk, the air smelled faintly of lemon-scented cleaner, and something else. Burnt toast. Tom was standing in the middle of the living room waiting for me. He looked like he'd aged 5 years in 7 days. There were dark circles under his eyes, and he'd lost the easy, confident posture he always carried. He looked humbled. Before either of us could speak, two small bodies came hurtling down the hallway. "Mommy!" Maya and Leo crashed into my legs, wrapping their arms around me so tightly I could barely breathe. I sank to my knees and hugged them, burying my face in their hair, inhaling the sweet, familiar scent of my children. The gaping hole in my chest that had been there all week finally began to close. "We missed you, Mommy," Maya whispered into my shoulder. "Daddy burned the pancakes," Leo announced with 4-year-old gravity, "twice." Over their heads, my eyes met Tom's. The look on his face was one of profound relief, gratitude, and a deep, bottomless shame. After the kids had shown me every picture they'd drawn, I sent them to the backyard to play. The silence that fell between Tom and me was heavy with unspoken words.
"He was the first to break it. He was the first to break it. He was the first to break it. I am so sorry, Sarah," he said, his voice raw. That's all I can say. I'm sorry for everything. For not seeing, for not knowing, for being an arrogant, ignorant fool. I didn't offer him easy comfort. I just stood there, my arms crossed, and listened. I needed to see if this was real. "I called your parents this morning," he continued, not meeting my eyes. "I asked them to come over." My heart clenched. "Why?" "Because I needed to apologize to them too," he said, finally looking up at me. "I needed to tell them how wrong I was. I needed to say it in front of them because I humiliated you in front of them." Just then the doorbell rang. Through the glass, I could see my mother and father standing on the porch. The 5 of us sat in the living room, the same room where a week earlier, my life had fractured. Tom took a deep breath. "David, Carol," he began, his voice shaking slightly. "Last Sunday, I said something unforgivable about your daughter. I called her spoiled. I was wrong. I was profoundly, shamefully wrong. This week has been the hardest week of my life. And it was just a fraction of what Sarah does, every single day, without thanks or recognition. She is the furthest thing from spoiled. She is the strongest, most capable person I have ever known, and I have treated her like she was invisible." He turned to me, his eyes shining with unshed tears. "And I did it all while she was also working a job, building a career that I never took seriously. I see it now, Sarah. I see all of it. And I am so, so sorry." My mother was crying softly. My father, a man of few words, simply looked at Tom and gave a slow, deliberate nod. After my parents left, I finally spoke. "I believe you, Tom," I said quietly. "I believe you're sorry. But sorry doesn't fix it. It doesn't magically create a partnership." "I know," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "What do we do? I'll do anything." "This can't be a temporary change because you had a bad week," I said, my voice gaining strength. "This has to be a permanent revolution in how we live our lives. The work of this house, the cleaning, the cooking, the finances, the emotional labor of managing our children's lives, it has to be shared. Not you help me, but we share. We need a system, a new deal." He's saying all the right things, but talk is cheap. Do you think Sarah should trust his change of heart, or is this just a temporary fix born from desperation? Let me know why or why not in the comments.
"It's more than a chart, Tom," I said, shaking my head. "A chart won't fix the underlying problem, the lack of respect, the assumption that my time is less valuable than yours." I looked him straight in the eye and delivered my ultimatum. It wasn't born of anger, but of a newfound clarity and self-worth. "I will stay," I said. "I will work with you to build a true partnership. But there's a condition." "Anything," he repeated, his eyes pleading. "We go to therapy," I said. "Both of us. Couples counseling. We need a professional to help us dismantle this broken dynamic and build a new one. We need to learn how to be real partners." I let the words hang in the air between us. "If you are not willing to do that," I finished, my voice unwavering, "then I am not just leaving for a week. I am leaving for good." He stared at me, and in his eyes, I saw the full weight of my words land. He saw that this wasn't a threat, it was a promise I was making to myself. A month has passed since I walked back through that door. Our life isn't perfect, it's still messy and chaotic, but now it's our shared chaos. We have a whiteboard on the fridge with a weekly breakdown of chores and responsibilities. We have a budget meeting every Sunday night where we both go over the accounts and plan for the week ahead. Tom now knows the name of Maya's teacher, the exact brand of yogurt Leo prefers, and how to pay the electric bill online. Our first therapy session was excruciating. Our second was a breakthrough. We are unlearning years of bad habits, of unspoken assumptions. Tom is learning to see the invisible work, and I am learning to let go of the control I held so tightly, because for years, it was the only power I had. He started leaving work at 5 o'clock twice a week, unapologetically, telling his boss it's his day for school pickup. He's discovering a relationship with his children that goes deeper than weekend fun. Some days are still hard. He forgets things, I get frustrated. We have to remind ourselves that we are rewiring our entire relationship. But the resentment that lived in my bones for so long is gone. It's been replaced by a fragile but growing hope. He no longer sees me as the woman who does nothing. He sees me as his partner, and I'm finally starting to see him as mine again. Sometimes, the only way to be heard is to stop speaking and start walking. Sometimes a house has to fall apart so you can rebuild it, together, on a stronger foundation. We still have a lot of work to do, but for the first time in a long time, we're doing it side by side. If you've ever felt taken for granted, if you've ever had your work be made invisible, share your story in the comments. There is so much power in knowing you are not alone. And if you believe that all work, especially the invisible work that holds our world together, deserves respect, please like this video and subscribe for more stories. Thank you for listening.